The story between Bugatti, Mat Armstrong, and the European Union law is not just about cars anymore. It has turned into a much bigger fight about ownership control and the future of how expensive machines are repaired. At the center of it all is a very unusual situation. On one side, there's Bugatti, one of the most powerful and exclusive car makers in the world. On the other side, there is Mat Armstrong, a well-known car builder and YouTuber who became famous for rebuilding crashed supercars that most people thought were impossible to fix. Now, these two names are indirectly tied together through a new European Union law that focuses on the right to repair. This law is expected to fully take effect in July 2026, and it changes how manufacturers must treat spare parts and repairs. The key idea behind this law is simple. If you buy something, especially something expensive like a car, you should not be completely blocked from repairing it outside the official dealer system. Independent mechanics and repair shops should also have access to parts, tools, and information, as long as they're qualified. This idea sounds fair to many people, but for companies like Bugatti, it challenges a business model that has existed for many years. For a long time, supercar owners had no choice but to rely on official service centers controlled by the manufacturer. That meant high prices, limited access, and strict rules about who could touch the car. Mat Armstrong's situation became important because his attempts to rebuild Bugatti cars brought attention to how strict these rules really are. When his projects were blocked or delayed, it raised questions in the public about whether car owners truly own their cars in a full sense. This is where the new law enters the picture and creates tension between legal rights and corporate control. The European Union's right to repair law is designed to change how repair systems work across many industries, not just cars. It applies to electronics, appliances, and now increasingly complex vehicles. The main goal is to reduce waste, lower repair costs, and give independent repair shops a fair chance to compete. In the automotive world, this means car manufacturers must make spare parts available beyond their official dealer networks. They can no longer fully lock out independent garages or force all repairs through their own system. This is a major shift because companies like Bugatti, Ferrari, and others in the high-performance market have always controlled repairs very tightly. Their argument has usually been that their cars are extremely complex and require special training, tools, and knowledge to repair safely. While that is partly true, critics argue that this system also gives manufacturers too much control and allows them to charge very high prices for repairs. The law tries to balance safety with fairness. It does not say anyone can repair anything without limits. Instead, it says qualified independent repairers should be able to access the same basic resources as official service centers. This includes spare parts, diagnostic tools, and technical information where needed. For companies, this means adjusting their business models and possibly changing how they protect their service networks. The law has been debated heavily, with strong lobbying from car manufacturers who try to delay or weaken it. However, the final version still moves forward with clear requirements. For everyday consumers, the impact could be significant. Repairs may become cheaper, more competitive, and more widely available. But for luxury brands, it could reduce their control over after-sales services, which is a major source of income and brand exclusivity. Mat Armstrong became connected to this larger legal and industry debate because of his work rebuilding high-end supercars. He is known for taking crashed, damaged, or abandoned luxury vehicles and restoring them back to working condition. Many of these projects are extremely difficult because manufacturers often restrict access to parts or limit who can legally perform repairs. In the case of Bugatti, these restrictions are especially strict. Some owners have faced situations where their cars were effectively blocked from repair unless they went through official channels. In Armstrong's case, his projects highlighted these problems in a very public way because he documents everything on video. When viewers saw him struggling to get parts or dealing with restricted access, it created a larger conversation online. People began questioning whether ownership of such expensive cars is truly complete, or if it is controlled by the manufacturer even after purchase. This is where tension started building between individual builders like Armstrong and companies like Bugatti. While Bugatti sees strict control as necessary to maintain quality and safety, Armstrong's work shows how difficult it is for skilled independent mechanics to operate under those rules. His projects are not just repairs. They are demonstrations of what is technically possible outside the official system. This makes him a symbolic figure in the wider debate, even if he did not intentionally start it. The situation became even more interesting when discussions about the new European law started overlapping with his real-world experiences. Suddenly, what used to be individual repair challenges turned into examples of a much bigger legal and economic shift happening across Europe. This is why his name is often connected to discussions about the future of supercar repairs. Bugatti's repair model has always been based on strict control. When someone buys one of their cars, they are not just buying a vehicle. They are also entering a system where maintenance and repairs are tightly managed by the company. Only authorized service centers are allowed to perform most repairs, and spare parts are usually not sold freely to outside mechanics. This system is designed to ensure that every repair meets the company's high standards. Bugatti cars are extremely advanced machines, so the company argues that improper repairs could create serious safety risks or reduce performance. However, critics see another side to this model. They argue that it creates dependency, where owners must rely entirely on Bugatti even for small repairs. This can lead to extremely high costs and long waiting times. In some cases, independent mechanics who are fully capable of doing the work are not allowed to access the necessary parts or software. Mat Armstrong's experience with Bugatti cars brought attention to this issue. His attempt to work on these vehicles showed how limited access can slow down or even stop repair projects entirely. The new EU law directly challenges this type of system by requiring companies to make spare parts more widely available. While Bugatti and similar companies may still maintain quality standards, they may no longer be able to fully restrict access. This does not mean independent garages will suddenly replace official service centers, but it does mean the balance of power may shift. Instead of full control by manufacturers, there will be more shared responsibility between companies and qualified independent repairers. This is a major change in how luxury car ownership works. The most important part of the upcoming law is the idea that repairs should not be controlled by a single company after a product is sold. Once a customer buys a product, they should have the freedom to maintain and repair it in different ways. In the automotive industry, this challenges a long-standing tradition where manufacturers keep control over parts and diagnostics. Supporters of the law believe this will create a healthier market, where independent repair shops can compete fairly and offer better prices. It could also reduce waste because more cars will be repaired instead of being abandoned due to expensive official repairs. However, manufacturers argue that their systems exist for good reasons. Modern supercars are extremely complex, with advanced electronics and precision engineering. They believe that unauthorized repairs could lead to safety risks or damage to the brand's reputation if something goes wrong. The law tries to address this by allowing exceptions for safety-critical components, but it still pushes for greater openness. In practice, this means companies like Bugatti may have to redesign how they distribute parts and share technical information. Independent mechanics would still need proper training and tools, but they would no longer be completely excluded. This shift could take years to fully settle, and legal interpretations will likely play a major role in how it is enforced. Some parts of the law may also be challenged or refined over time. Still, the direction is clear. More access, more transparency, and less total control by manufacturers. For the automotive world, this marks a significant turning point. Another important factor in this story is geography and legal jurisdiction. The European Union law applies to member countries within the EU, but Mat Armstrong is based in the United Kingdom, which left the EU after Brexit. This creates an interesting legal situation. Even if the law forces companies operating in the EU to change their behavior, it is not always clear how that affects individuals outside the EU. If Armstrong wants to directly benefit from the law, it may depend on where repair work takes place or who is involved in the process. For example, if a car is located in an EU country or if a European repair shop is involved, the law may apply more clearly. But if the entire situation is based in the UK, the legal impact becomes less direct. This creates uncertainty about how future repair cases involving international owners will be handled. Companies like Bugatti operate globally, so they must navigate different legal systems at the same time. This adds complexity to how they manage parts distribution and repair policies. It also means that while the EU law is powerful, its real-world impact will vary depending on location. For Armstrong's situation, This could mean that legal rights exist in theory, but may require specific conditions to be fully enforced in practice. This uncertainty is one of the most debated parts of the entire story. Looking at the bigger picture, the impact of this law goes far beyond Bugatti and Mat Armstrong. It affects the entire high-performance car industry. Brands like Ferrari, Porsche, and Koenigsegg all use similar control repair networks to manage their vehicles. If the EU law is enforced strongly, all of these companies may need to adjust their systems. Independent repair shops that were previously excluded could gain access to parts and information, changing how luxury cars are maintained across Europe. For car owners, this could mean lower repair costs and more options. For manufacturers, it could mean losing some control over after-sales service, which has traditionally been an important part of their business model. This shift also reflects a broader trend in consumer rights, where buyers are increasingly demanding control over products they own. The same debates are happening in electronics, farming equipment, and medical devices. The automotive industry is just one of the most visible examples because of the high value and emotional connection people have with cars. Mat Armstrong's story became part of this larger movement because it showed, in a very public way, what happens when repair access is restricted, whether intentional or not. His work highlighted a system that many people were already questioning. As the law moves closer to enforcement, the industry will have to adapt to a new reality where control is more shared than absolute. In the end, this story is not just about one law or one car builder. It is about how modern ownership works in a world of advanced technology and strict corporate systems. Bugatti represents the highest level of automotive control, where every detail is carefully managed by the manufacturer. Mat Armstrong represents the independent side of the industry, where skilled builders try to bring damaged machines back to life outside official systems. The European Union law sits between them, trying to create a balance between safety, fairness, and access. As July 2026 approaches, the industry will be watching closely to see how this law is applied in real situations. There will likely be disagreements, legal interpretations, and adjustments along the way. But the direction of change is already clear. Repair is becoming less exclusive and more open. Owners are gaining more rights over the products they buy. And manufacturers are being pushed to rethink how much control they should keep after a sale is completed. Whether this leads to smoother repairs or new conflicts remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. The relationship between car makers and car owners is changing permanently, and stories like Mat Armstrong's have helped bring that change into the public. As the enforcement date of the European Union right to repair law gets closer, the pressure on car manufacturers is expected to increase in a very real way. Companies like Bugatti will not just be dealing with public debate anymore. They will have to deal with legal requirements that can be enforced in court. This changes everything because it moves the situation from opinion and business policy into official regulation. When a law becomes enforceable, it means companies cannot simply ignore it or rely on internal rules anymore. They must adjust their systems, supply chains, and repair policies to match what is required. For a brand like Bugatti, which has built its identity on exclusivity and strict control, this creates a difficult challenge. Their entire service model depends on limiting access to parts and ensuring that only approved technicians work on their vehicles. Changing this system could require major restructuring. At the same time, they cannot afford to be seen as ignoring the law, especially in European markets where regulations are strongly enforced. This is why companies often begin preparing years in advance, even if public change is not immediately visible. They may quietly adjust contracts, revise dealer agreements, or redesign parts distribution systems before the law officially takes effect. From the outside, it might look like nothing is happening, but inside the industry, major planning is already underway. For independent repairers and enthusiasts like Mat Armstrong, this period is very important because it represents a transition phase. It is a time when legal rights are being established, but business practices are still catching up. That gap between law and reality is where most of the tension exists. Some companies may fully comply early, while others may test the limit of the law to see how strictly it is enforced. Either way, the industry is entering a phase where long-standing practices are no longer guaranteed to continue in their original form. One of the most debated parts of new law is how reasonable access to spare parts will actually be defined. The law says that manufacturers must make parts available, but it does not clearly set fixed prices or exact conditions for what counts as fair access. This leaves room for interpretation, which is where many future conflicts may arise. A company could technically follow the law by offering parts to independent repairers, but still set very high prices that make repairs unrealistic outside official channels. This creates a situation where the law is followed on paper, but questioned in practice. For consumers and independent mechanics, this is a major concern because access alone is not enough if the cost is too high. On the other hand, manufacturers argue that their parts are extremely specialized and expensive to produce, especially for high-performance vehicles like Bugatti cars. They claim that pricing reflects engineering complexity, safety requirements, and low production volume. This debate over cost versus access is likely to become one of the first major legal battles after enforcement begins. Courts may need to decide what reasonable actually means in real-world terms. This could take years of legal cases and interpretations before a stable standard is formed. During this time, both manufacturers and independent repairers will be watching closely to understand where the limits are. For someone like Mat Armstrong, this uncertainty is especially important because it affects whether his type of work becomes easier or remains just as difficult as before. If prices remain extremely high or access is heavily restricted in practice, then the spirit of the law may not fully match its impact. This gap between intention and reality is one of the biggest challenges in regulatory change, especially in complex industries like automotive manufacturing. Another important aspect of this story is how public attention influences corporate behavior. Mat Armstrong's projects became widely followed online, and this visibility changes how companies respond. In private cases, where a single owner struggles to get parts or support, manufacturers may handle issues quietly through internal processes. But when a situation becomes public and reaches a large audience, it can create pressure that goes beyond normal customer service. Companies become more cautious because their reputation is directly affected by how they respond. In Armstrong's case, his Bugatti-related projects brought attention to repair restrictions that many people were not aware before. Viewers saw the challenges involved in accessing parts,